Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Earlham School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Dusky Terry, and I will be the moderator for tonight's forum. We have an election coming up on Tuesday, November 7th, and we have 4 candidates running to fill 3 seats on the school board. The forum tonight is an opportunity for these candidates to introduce themselves to voters and discuss issues important to our school district. This is a forum, not a debate, so the candidates will be responding to questions from me. I'll briefly review the format for tonight's forum. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask a series of questions to each of the candidates and allow for 2-minute responses. I have some prepared questions that I will ask the members of the audience to submit questions as well. Each candidate will be asked the same questions. The candidates will respond only to the questions and not ask questions of or respond directly to other candidates. And each candidate will be given 2 minutes for closing remarks at the end. The order for responding to questions will rotate. Our candidates tonight are Julie Muchler-McNeil, Charlie Lenz, Aaron Christensen, and Jess T. Meyer. I also want to introduce Mr. Steve Castor, our superintendent, who will be serving as our timekeeper. He will be providing warnings at 3 intervals. When you have 30 seconds remaining, 10 seconds remaining, and he will signal when time is up. I do want to invite the audience to submit questions on a note card. My wife, Connie, is standing in the back. She's got note cards and pens. If you just want to write any questions that you have of the candidates down, I will do my best to ask as many of those questions as I can, given the time that we have tonight. We do plan to conclude by 8 p.m. Please make sure your question is appropriate and directed at all of the candidates to answer. I will use discretion in deciding what questions will be asked. So let's get right to the questions, and we'll start with opening statements, and I'd ask each of you, please tell us about yourself, including any professional or family background you would like to share, and why you want to be a member of the Earlham School Board. In 3 minutes, we'll start with Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Muchler-McNeil. I am a 1998 Earlham graduate. I also attended Drake University. I have 3 kids. Can you not hear? Is that better?
Go now.
She's still, this is nice, this is louder in the back.
I think you're good.
Yeah? Can you hear me now? I have 3 kids. My oldest graduated Earlham in 2020 and attends the University of Iowa. I have a daughter who's going to be a senior this year, or is a senior this year, who will be attending Simpson University, and my son Zaner is in 8th grade. I've served on the school board for 8 years. I've been board president for 5. In that time, I could be a million little things that we've done. Some of our big projects have been the gymnasium that we oversaw start to finish on the gymnasium, COVID for the good and the bad, the changing superintendents, going from a previous superintendent through an interim to the superintendent we have now. Most recently, we've done a needs assessment and set some pretty big targets, including CTE building, maybe classroom space size being addressed. We have a lot of things that we have going on, and things that I think that I've added value to accomplishing and continue to add value and accomplishing for the next 4 years.
Charlie.
Hi, Charlie Lenz. Live west of town here. I'm running to help with the short and long-term facility planning of our area. With the growth coming, we need to have some thought going that way. I'm also a big proponent of post-secondary options other than college. I'm a big believer in CTE programs as well, construction technology, the welding field, nursing programs as well, which are involved with college, but are a different degree path and provide better outlets for students being fully invested in their lives. I'm married to Brooke out here in the audience. She's a graduate 2003 of Earlham. I have 2 children that go to school here, Coulter in 7th grade, Brody. Is that better? All right, I'll start back. I'm married to Brooke Lenz right here. She's a 2003 graduate of Earlham. I've got 2 sons that both go to school here. Coulter's in 7th, Brody's in 4th. I earned my bachelor's a long time ago from Northwest Missouri State, and I currently work for BASF, cover Southwest Iowa.
Hi, my name is Erin Christensen, and I am married to Quentin Christensen, and we have 3 wonderful kids. We have a first grader, a third grader, and a fifth grader. I graduated from the University of Iowa with my doctorate in nursing practice. I specialized in family practice. I currently work as a family nurse practitioner for Signify Health and Mercy One Medical in Des Moines. I am running for school board because I want to try to create a little more transparency for the public. Sometimes I feel like there's not a big understanding of what's taught in our school system, and sometimes as parents we feel lost. I have 3 kids in the school system. I care a lot about the future and academic success of our students here at Earlham, and I overall want to be involved in the decision making, and that shapes our kids for the future.
All right, I'm Jess Tima. I want to start out by thanking Dusty as well as our administration for hosting tonight's event. I'd also like to thank all of you for coming out, as well as those on the live stream. I think it's really great that you all have the opportunity to really have an informed choice on the upcoming election. But again, I'm Jess, born and raised Iowa, married my husband and moved to Earlham in 2006. We are raising 3 children, all currently enrolled in Earlham. I have my oldest, Blake, who is a junior, a freshman, Peyton, and then my youngest, Reese, is in the 4th grade. I've spent the majority of my career working for large organizations in human resources, coming up on 15, maybe 20 years of HR experience with background from hiring to ER to employment law and regulations. Most recently, I switched over to a risk role, so looking at policies, looking at procedures, and really identifying opportunities and gaps. In addition to that, I've spent the last 8 years on the Earlham School Board, the last 4 being in the vice president role. I've served on multiple committees, as well as being the Dallas County representative for the school district. Couple things that I like to share. I recently completed the Gallup Strength Assessment, where it talks about a series of questions to identify what your strengths are. And there were 5 areas that came out for me. Actually 3 areas, 5 strengths, 3 areas. My first strength was in execution, achiever and responsibility, influencing, building relationships and making connections, and then also relationship building, harmony and inclusion. I am running for re-election on school board to continue the great work that I feel that our district has accomplished. I know what being a school board member entails, and I'm confident that I have the skills to continue building on those changes within our district. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes to Charlie first. What do you consider to be the role of public education?
I mean, that can be summed up many ways, but the way I'm going to look at it is to educate all students focused on core content, knowledge, and skills to make them successful adults. I mean, in the end, it's what we all want. We want them all to come out and be very successful in the end.
I consider the role of public education is to prepare our students academically. That's whether they're prepared to enter a 4-year college, whether we have educated them and provided them opportunities for trade schools, or whether we have prepared them to enter the workforce right after school.
All right, so as I was prepping for tonight's forum, my mind went back to a presentation we had where it talked about the changes in public education over the last 100 years. So dating back to the 1900s, when public education first came into play, there were 4 requirements: reading, writing, math, and civics. Back when I was in school, the list was around 30 requirements. Today, that list is over 60 requirements. So I think it's really important when we think about public education is the change that our teachers, our administration are going through year over year over year. Those requirements are increasing every year. At the core, though, it's about educating our youth. It's about providing a safe, stable environment for our kids, thinking about what is next for them. So talking about, the trades or going to college, career readiness, whatever that is, and really teaching to the whole student and what their needs are, understanding those needs and delivering tools and resources for them to be successful. But I think another thing to really think about is the public side of public education. So that public piece brings a lot of responsibility for your board and your administrators. Understanding that we follow laws, rules, regulations are all very critical things for a board to understand. And finally, just making sure that we follow those. I'm going to tie it back to the accreditation. So to ensure that our district can stay what I would consider a non-consolidated, strong district, we need to make sure that we're keeping that public thought in the forefront. Thank you.
And Julie.
Jess and I attended the same presentation, so my answer is similar. Public education's primary goal is the 3 E's. Are our students enrollable? Are they enrollable, enlistable, or employable? So our job when they graduate is, can they enroll in post-secondary education? Can they enlist in the military? Or can they be employed? So we have things like, I think we have 3 students doing CNA programs right now. We have, my own daughter is getting her coaching certificate right now. We've had kids before that do culinary arts or kids that do construction apprenticeship. So that's one of the 3 areas that we need to focus more on, but those are the primary goals of public education. Second to that is public education serves other social needs that we also have to accommodate for, whether those needs are social development, whether those needs are discipline, whether those needs are nutritional needs, whether it's simply supervision. So when we identify our primary goals, which are the educational goals, we have to always take into account that our teachers are being asked to satisfy other social needs as well.
All right, next question goes to Erin first. In your own terms, what is the role of the school board and what is the role of the school superintendent?
The role of the school board is to set the vision and goal of the community and to be a voice for the community. They oversee and evaluate student success. They approve curriculum in our school. They monitor the budget, and they hire and evaluate the superintendent. And they should be active and visible in the schools and community so that if community members or staff in the school have questions, that they're available to talk to.
Similar answer. School board is, I think there's 3 main components of school board. Management, oversight of policy, and then that finance piece. So management, very similar to what Erin said, hiring a strong superintendent, making sure that that leadership is bringing in the voice of the community, the voice of the staff, the voice of the students, making sure that they're pulling that vision, those goals into the district. So there's definitely that leadership component. But I think with the board, their role is really to collaborate with the superintendent who's on the ground, working with the staff day in and day out to really understand what's going on in the district and what the needs are and how we can seek to see the responses and seek to see the results. So there's that management piece, policy. I don't know if anybody's ever done some light reading, but schools have hundreds of policies out there, so that's a huge undertaking of the board to make sure that those policies are up to date, they're in compliance, they align with not only the laws and the regs, but what's going on in our community, what's going on in our district, and does that meet the needs of our students and our staff. Finance, anybody who's looked at school finance, that's a big undertaking, understanding the budget, understanding the funds, how the money comes in, how the money goes out. Every month we receive a full list of the bills that are to be paid and how they're going to be paid and what funds are going to come out of. So finance is another key piece. And then when I think about the superintendent is the person on the ground delivering the results, making sure that they're leading their staff, making sure they're creating that strong environment. I think communication to the public is huge in our superintendent role, making sure that the voices of the community are heard and that feedback is brought in. Thank you.
So I remember when I got this question the first time I ran for school board, I had absolutely no idea what the actual answer is, and I looked it up and found the definitions. My answer 8 years later is a little bit different. I'm going to say it in a little more layman's terms. Our job on the school board is a really, really macro view of finance. It's a really, really micro view of policy and detail work. It is hiring, firing, and evaluating the superintendent. And we are the last chain of command with any issues that go up on the board. The more soft answer, that's the nuts and bolts answer. The other more soft answer to it is going to be, we are, maybe not soft answer, but we are the voice or the advocate for our stakeholders, our parents, our teachers, our students, and our community members. And how do I want to put that? We advocate for what the students need, the districts need, everyone as a whole. And I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry. Totally blanked on it. The thing is, there's so many things that we need to do. It's hard to say it as simply as I can. The role of the superintendent, the first time I looked that up, it basically says he's the CEO of the business, and I don't think that's a very good answer. The superintendent's job depends on the district too, if you're a really big district or a really small district. In our district, the superintendent wears all of the hats and has to wear them all really well and has to rely on people that are really, really good to share those hats. And I think in our district especially, most importantly, our superintendent is our leader. He's the person who drives what our vision is. When we say this is the very best district in the state of Iowa, he's the person that has to pull that train.
All right, here's how I see the school board. Monitoring and overseeing all that goes on through the school. Ensuring student success is crucial, and providing accountability does not. Writing and setting policies, overseeing the employment process, keeping a very strong financial package for the school going, and open and transparent with communication between all parties involved. Superintendent, he's the face of the school, or she, depending on the situation. They handle the day-to-day activities, they stay up to date on new teaching models and technologies to keep us up to date as a school, make recommendations to the board on decisions that need to be made.
All right, next question goes to Jess first. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing our school in the next 3 years?
First of all, it's freezing out here, so if you see me shaking, it's because it's really cold. Our name tags keep blowing around, but this is a question that I'm super passionate about. I think one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face in the next 3 years is managing responsible growth. As a community, and 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever years ago, we have been told that our community is going to grow. It is going to grow, it will grow. But our school district has been pretty stagnant. So if you look at the numbers over the last 8 years since I've been on the board, we've averaged around 560 to 570 students. Recently, there were some changes in law that gave parents more choice about where they want their parents to go to school, and that has benefited Earlham. We are a great place to be. Last year, we had over 590 students. This year, our count came in at 619. A couple numbers to think about are the open enrollment numbers. Students coming in, we have 115. Going out, we have 72. And I think what's really interesting about those numbers is a lot of the students going out are in the secondary, so middle school and high school. So we're going to see that number going out drop, in my opinion, because younger families, newer families are staying in Earlham. So one of the things that we did, and hopefully we'll get a chance to get into it later, is we partnered with a firm that did a needs assessment, and they did everything from classroom size to plumbing, electrical, really digging into what our district needs. I got the 30 seconds to give us a great understanding of where we stand. And I think that the biggest challenge is going to be managing that growth and those needs through that plan, because with that growth, it's going to come. We're going to struggle with property taxes. Money coming in is going to take a while, because right now Earlham has a 5-year tax abatement, and so we need to plan responsibly so that we can make sure to manage that growth against a budget that will take some time to build. Thank you.
So my answer is going to mirror Jess's. It's not only managing the growth, but I think a big part of it is going to be predicting that growth. And without repeating her numbers, the tax rate is really important to us. When we got on the board, the tax rate was $16.75. Now it's 13.39, I think, something like that. We've kept it low, we've lowered it, kept it low, kept it even. That is something that's been really important. But as we go forward, the growth that we're seeing, we have to predict whether or not we can spend money to grow our district. That needs assessment that was done by Boyd Jones has already told us our elementary is too small for the number of students we have. But you heard her say all of our enrollment numbers. Full transparency, of those numbers coming in, 78 of them are coming from one district. So that is a lot for us to gamble on, to put money forward or to ask for a bond or to look at raising taxes when those are bodies that actually come out of our district. The other side of that is if we open up a development, if we have something like that happen, not to call out Adele, but they're in a really challenging position. We don't want to be behind the 8 ball and not be ready to grow if there's an in-town development. So the short answer to that is managing growth without a crystal ball and being conservative financially with our choices without getting ourselves too far behind and getting ourselves in trouble.
I guess I'll kind of echo a lot of what the previous three said there. New housing and open enrollment, I mean, they're both coming. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. It's going to happen at some point, but we've been saying that for 8 years now. It'll happen eventually. But with that, being prepared to grow correctly, utilizing the facilities we have here, I think, is probably going to be the key the next 4 years. Probably updating the third-story part of this building to get it more up to code, make it easier to use, maybe go out to the CTE building across the road or build that where we need to maybe accommodate some more space here in the school so we have some more classrooms without having to build an elementary right away until we get the growth to justify spending that money. A lot of uncertainty now, but again, plans for the future so we don't have problems like Adele going forward.
I'm also going to add to that. I think growth is our #1 issue that we're facing right now. With some of the same numbers she shared, there's currently 619 students. I believe our school capacity holds 700. So with the big enrollment and seeing the open enrollment is just a key to seeing that people want to come to Earlham, and we need to be proactive with that. So we need to be prepared to whether it's we add on and do the remodels here that are sustainable and last long enough to continue to hold these open enrollments, or we look further into building something additional to see if that's how we combat that. But I think we want slow growth. I don't think we want to just jump into something. We want to make smart decisions, and we want to make sure we're doing the right thing for Earlham. And but I just think we need to be ready for growth, and that's what's coming our way.
All right, I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience now, and this one will go to Julie first. And this is about kind of your role as a member of the school board. Are you willing to commit the time to spend up to 15 hours a week as a board member? And can you set aside your personal beliefs to advocate for every student in our school? Two-part question.
Yes, I think actually I was talking to Charlie about this before. I had about 6 months when we switched from the previous superintendent to an interim and that process where I was spending between 20 and 30 hours a week working on this, and most of them were actually in the building. So I've had some weeks where it has been a lot of time. I'm completely aware of what the time commitment is. I've never missed a board meeting. I haven't missed a single one. I've never not had my work done ahead of time. And as far as setting aside personal beliefs, I actually think that's something that I am extremely good at. I have made decisions on the school board that haven't benefited my own family, particularly, I know COVID's a sore topic, but without getting too into it, yeah, I've always been very, very aware that there are needs for me and needs for you and needs for the students. I also am a big advocate that I don't think that this is a political position. Whether I believe something or you believe something or you believe something, we're here to teach. We're not here to preach or push personal beliefs. We're here to make this a safe place for all students. What all students believe, parents can teach those beliefs at home, but we make this comfortable for everyone. I've always been really comfortable setting that aside. And yeah, as far as the time, yes, it is a lot of time. Yes, it is a lot of time. It's not always fun, but I'm very capable of doing it.
Yeah, as far as the time, I have no issues putting forth that effort every week if need done. As my kids have gotten older, I've been involved with a lot of the youth sports, so my time can go from those activities towards school boarding activities and helping the community. What was the second part of that question?
Second part had to do with, can you set aside your personal beliefs to advocate for every student in our school?
Yeah, I think absolutely I can. Kind of Julie in there a little bit. I think COVID taught me a lot about opinions and beliefs. Just because someone else has a different belief on something doesn't mean they're not right in some fashion as well. Professionally, I learned that through COVID as well, through supply shortages and what I do in the chem world, and swallowing my pride and having to make recommendations with competitive products to help farmers, get their job done. It's hard to do, but sometimes you set aside your disbeliefs and do the right thing.
Yes, I'm very dedicated to putting into the hours that the school board is going to require. I'm dedicated to our children, and I look forward to learning all of the policies and procedures and all of that goes into being on the school board. As far as personal beliefs go, I think those definitely need to be set aside. We're here for our kids' academic success. We're not here to talk about politics. We're not here to talk about social norms. We're here to teach our kids and prepare them for the future.
As Julie mentioned, as current board members, we're very aware of the requirements and what it takes to be a successful board. There have been times where board activities will be very limited, and some where it's consuming. It's very consuming, and we've experienced the ups and downs of that over the last 8 years. So I would say, absolutely, I'm willing to continue and give that time. I want to give that time back to the community. I feel like I still have a lot to give in this role. The personal bias, again, something I feel like I've proven to the community. I make decisions with everybody's children in mind. I think about how is this going to benefit all of our kids? How is this going to impact our teachers? How is this going to impact our community? But on top of that, it's what I do for a living. I've worked in HR for 20 years. So understanding the differences and listening to people's opinions, different people's beliefs, and really having to lead that through. It's not something I've only done on the board, but something I've done for the last 15, 20 years in my career.
Next one goes to Charlie. Charlie, if elected, what will you do to increase the transparency of data reported to the public on Earlham Community School District proficiency results in reading, writing, math, and science as compared with other Iowa schools and nationwide?
I guess I'm going to copy a little bit of ADM's here. I recently saw some handouts that they send out to all within the school district on their goals, their transparency, and what they have right now and where they want to be. They make some very large jumps in their reading growth and math testing. I mean, I'd love to see us do similar. It's a handout, probably 7 or 8 pages that I read through. It shows a 2020 to 2021 goal of being, 8% better in efficiency in math from 25 to 18. Their goal was to get to 15. They didn't make it, so the next time they did it, they doubled down, wanted to get to 10. They made 13, I believe, going back on that. But having, big goals, lofty, bettering ourselves, bettering our community, bettering our kids is what we need to do by sharing this data. And by not sharing it, maybe we don't get the competitive drive out of maybe some teachers and some students as well to help, build everyone and push everyone forward.
Dusty, could you read that question again? I don't think I heard all of it.
Sure. If elected, what will you do to increase the transparency of data reported to the public on Earlham Community School District's proficiency results in reading, writing, math, and science as compared with other Iowa schools and nationwide?
Okay, so I think first it would be to reach out to the teachers to see maybe what barriers or things that they need to help them to increase our numbers there. I think success starts with the teachers. We have great teachers here in Earlham that do a wonderful job of teaching our kids. So I think it just goes to see, what in the classrooms can we do better, and then set some goals. I know, like Charlie said, I also read the ABM pamphlet that came out, and they do have big goals. They're a little bit different school districts, so I don't think we have to compare ourselves to them. But I do think we should set high standards for our students and try to succeed to those.
I mentioned earlier about educating the whole student, and so I think that when you think about those goals and the math, the reading, and those very specific goals, I think we could do better about communicating results out. But one thing that we've experienced as a board is we do have the administrators, the principals coming in and sharing results as well as goals. And just recently this year, our principals came in and shared goals that I think at one point we actually asked them, are these really obtainable? Because they're high, they're very high. So I think that when we talk about the goals that our leaders are setting, they're high. They expect the best from their staff to get the students at the best level that they can be at. So I think the one area that we could maybe do a little better is communicating those results out to the public. Like I said, we see them as a board, we evaluate them on an ongoing basis. We see the goals, we see the plans that the administrators have to really execute against those goals, but maybe definitely something we could do a better job about getting that out to the public. One area that I think parents see, especially in the elementary, middle school area, is you do get to see those MAP test scores, state averages, and how your kiddos comparing in those and meeting those goals. But again, I'll say it again, I think that's an area that we could definitely improve on.
So yeah, if I'm understanding the question right, the question is regarding transparency. And like Jess said, I think transparency isn't actually the issue. The information is available. Our issue is communication. And this was something we talked about at our last board meeting. We finished with a work session where we picked our 3 big rocks. And 2 of our big rocks had to do with communication, and it was our curriculum and our SIAC committee and how we get that stuff out to the public. We have those, Kristen Sheffield makes fantastic spreadsheets that anyone that is in the building or at a board meeting has seen. The information is all there. We're just not doing a good enough job of making sure it's where people are seeing it. It might be in the Cardinal Chatter, but maybe not everybody's reading it. Maybe it needs to be just in a way that people can consume it a little better. So I think the question is transparency, but the actual issue is communication.
Aaron's up next, and I'm going to try and we're getting lots of questions from the audience. Thank you for the submissions. I'm going to try and group several topics together. So, if elected, what will you do to assure parents that Earlham Community School District students are exposed to age-appropriate material, both in terms of books and media and health curriculum, and some of the specific topics that have been mentioned in the question, age-appropriate being sexually explicit, sexual orientation, LGBTQ+, transgender ideology. So if elected, what would you do to make sure that, to assure parents that students are exposed to age-appropriate material?
Okay, so like Jolene mentioned before, when you first look at what the school board does, it is confusing because you get a lot of information. My understanding is that the school board approves the curriculum. So to me, that's where curriculum starts. I think curriculum needs to be reviewed, what we're teaching our kids, and what they're receiving material at school. I recently found out that first grade was taught some information that I didn't necessarily agree with, and when I look back to see where that information comes from, I look at the curriculum and school board approval. So to me, that's how I would oversee what students are being taught, is by reviewing the curriculum and seeing what our teachers are going to teach them. If the curriculum's approved, if we can pull some of that information, some of the LGBTQ, some of the sexual explicit stuff that does not need to be taught to our kids. Again, we're here to teach our kids academics, we're here to prepare them for the future, we're here to make them better people so that they can go on to college and get a career after school.
So I'm going to take a little different approach on this. I agree, the school board definitely approves the curriculum, but probably from a different lens than what most people assume. From a school board perspective, I will say, I will never tell you that I am an educator. I don't look at the curriculum to determine how it's going to be taught or how it's going to come into the classroom. My goal is to determine what was the vetting process, how are our teachers using this, how does it align with standards. And so when we've approved curriculum in the past, we get a full download or presentation from our curriculum director, who we've placed in that role as the expert, to let us know what reviews she's done, how she's taken it out to different forums and different groups to get feedback, how are other districts using it, how does it align with required standards and things in the classroom. So again, I'm not an educator, so I don't feel that I'm the right person to review those items. However, with that being said, I understand that that's a hot topic right now. What's in our library? What's being taught to our kids? Very, very important. We've had a lot of people reach out to us with questions and feedback, and I think as a board, as well as an administration team, we've taken that very seriously. We've reviewed the request, we've reviewed the information to make sure that it's appropriate. We have taken books out of our library based on specific reviews and requests. But at the end of the day, my role is to make sure that there was a vetting process, that we did look at if that meets the needs of our district and not so much the content, because again, I'm just not an educator and that's not my role. And I trust the experts that we've hired and put in place to take that on.
So I'm going to echo what Jess said. When we work as school boards, a lot of what we do is very macro and some of it is very micro. And so in that instance, when we're approving curriculum, yes, we're approving curriculum, but we're not just considering the materials in the curriculum. We trust Mrs. Sheffield and our staff to do most of that work. We're also considering financially, can we afford the curriculum? Does it satisfy state mandated requirements such as what we're required to teach as far as sex education goes? And I'm not going to get you answer that question really well. I think part of what this topic is asking is also about our library materials. And the way that a board oversees that in a really micro way is we write policy and we approve the policy. And that policy is what establishes the procedures for things like curriculum approval and for our library content. So our policy, I'm not gonna go through it because I won't word it perfectly, but our policy establishes who approves our library material, how that library material is reviewed, and if that library material needs reviewed, how it's reviewed, and what's taken out. So like Jess said, anything pornographic has been removed from the library, so that's not there anymore. For any other content, there's a review process that we write and update the policy for. So that's what our board's role is the policy that oversees our library and our curriculum.
When it comes to class and agenda and all that good stuff that goes along with it, I mean, there's right, there's wrong, and all that, and however you want to read it. But in the end of the day, if we're just gonna fully take someone's word for it and check the box and move on without reading any of it, I think we're probably failing our kids. We need to kind of take a step back and look in and probably dive in a little deeper and see what's really being taught. I mean, at the end of the day, the first grade class issue happens, it's not a big deal, but more and more of that can slip through, and going through the curriculum, understanding what's being taught is going to be more important going forward. That's just my opinion on it. I just don't think a flat vote to approve a whole agenda is going to be a good thing going forward. When it comes to books in the library, material coming in, I think we probably better look at setting a process of maybe forming a committee that reviews the books as they come in, that brings what they think to the school board, to maybe make some recommendations on A, we're going to bring it to the library, or B, we're not going to. It's not just one person's decision on who and what should read what and how it goes forward.
Next question goes to Jess first, and I received a few on COVID. And given what the school did and did not do during COVID, what, if anything, would you do differently if something similar occurred now?
All right, so another hot topic, and I will say from a COVID standpoint, I think we did our best that we could to keep kids in classrooms. We had kids here every day, and our teachers were here every day. So I think that's, in comparison to some of the other districts, we were successful in that. From a board perspective, I think we had a lot of lessons learned, and I said it multiple times, I wish I just had a playbook, I wish I had a policy, I wish I knew what I was doing, because it was my first time living through a pandemic as well. So there were a lot of emotions, there were a lot of decisions that had to be made, and we saw it from both sides. We saw people that wanted their kids home, and we saw people that wanted their kids in school full time. So we tried to balance that the best we could. Do I think we did everything right? No. No, I don't. I think we had some opportunities, but I think we grew a lot as a district. Some of the things that came out of that, we enhanced our technology for what I would consider diverse learning opportunities for those families that maybe aren't going to be able to attend school on a regular basis in a classroom. We've expanded our technology to suit those kids. We've made some improvements to online learning curriculum. We continue to see students take online courses that aren't offered in our district, so that was definitely a plus that came out of that. We partnered with some different academies and groups that are now offering coursework, and we continue to bring that coursework to our students that As a smaller district, we just don't have. But I think there were a lot of lessons learned. There were a lot of emotions that went into that time frame from everyone. And I think we're more prepared for any type of what I would call educational crisis in the future.
Being fully transparent, that was a brutally hard time being on the school board. I know that every one of the board members, every meeting we had, our goal was to do the very, very best that we could for our district. And the one thing that I would say more than anything else that I would change is communication. We did not do a good enough job explaining what we were doing or telling what we were doing or helping people understand what our goals were. There are 100 ways I could explain that. And again, it's such a difficult topic because there were so many things going on. When we had meetings discussing what our goals were, our primary goal in this district was not to close the doors. Those, 12 weeks that we didn't have school, we had Jason Hammond and Jen Knight in the board meetings that summer saying, we are going to be open every day. Whatever we have to do, whatever hybrid plan or masking or setting aside kids and measuring, our kids were not going to go home. We did not want kids learning remotely if we could at all help doing that. But we didn't do a very good job making sure that people understood that that was our priority. So things got very political. Using masks became very political. I can tell you all 5 of us as board members, we approved using masks because it kept kids from being quarantined. But it became such a political hot topic that people were so angry or hurt or concerned that they weren't being represented. So more than anything else, and probably the thing that we have visited more than everything else is where our district fell down with communication. And that communication that hurt us at COVID, it has hurt us as a district in other ways. I think the other thing that was a really good benefit coming out of that is we saw so much division in our district, and we've really pushed, especially with leadership, to make sure that we move forward a lot more unified when we do everything.
Definitely COVID was trying times for everyone. I'll echo, I was on the school board during that, but the communication, to me, looking back on it, there was some issues there. No fingers pointed at anybody. When it comes back to the masking, I think back to the effectiveness, the data, the numbers, all that goes into account, but the thing I come back to is it took a governor to sign a law or an order to unmask our kids. It took too long. The kids suffered because of it. Our reading, our test numbers went backwards because of it. You know, I don't think it's something we could do again unless the science really, really showed a strong, strong correlation between infection rate and going back to the mask.
I think COVID definitely had a devastating impact on our kids' learning. I think the board was in a tough spot though. COVID was very difficult. They were doing the best they could by taking information that they were receiving from the CDC and information that they were receiving from the government. So I think it was just a really hard time for them. I think it was a hard time for everybody. People didn't know whether their kids should be in masks or whether they couldn't be in masks. And then the more data we got, we knew that kids weren't really being affected much by COVID. They weren't really showing the signs and symptoms. And I think that's where our community started to push forward and say, okay, let's get the masks off the kids. Let's stop going till 1 o'clock. Let's get our kids in full time. I think the parents could see the effects that it was having on the kids by having them home at 1 o'clock and not in the school the full time. I think Jolene is right. I think the community was a little bit frustrated with communication. We were turning to the board. We were lost. We wanted to know what was going on, and we felt like we weren't getting that feedback. We showed up to those meetings to talk about some of those things. So I think, like she said, the board's probably well more prepared to handle another situation like this. We now had COVID shots out, so families are welcome to get vaccinated. They still have the chance to wear a mask if they want to be here, but we just need to do the best we can to keep our kids in school full-time and learning.
All right, next question goes to Jolene first. And I'm gonna, we've got a few questions about support for teachers. I'm gonna try and combine them into one question. What can the school board do to help the district recruit, develop, and retain quality teachers And how does the school board plan to support teachers in the area of discipline and classroom management?
That's very similar to a question that we were originally given. The really obvious answer is how do we recruit teachers, competitive pay, culture. Competitive pay, we've done a lot the last few years to bring our pay scale up, but that's a tough one. We only have so much that we can use out of the general fund. It's a finite resource. So we rely on culture to be one of the things that brings teachers into our district and to keep good teachers into our district. And we protect that culture, by being a welcoming community, having this place be home for all of us. Another way is to have really high standards for our staff. We bring in the best staff when they look to their left or to the right. The staff members that they work with and that support them, that they're supporting, are also high. But when I first looked at this question that didn't have the discipline component, my answer to that question was how do we support our staff when they're teaching away from make our students enrollable, make them employable, make them enlistable. Discipline is very, very difficult for our staff right now. Doing those non-educational jobs, the nutritional needs, the social needs, the discipline needs, those are hard and those are exhausting. We all have enough friends that are teachers or talk to teachers to know that that causes burnout. I think the district in the last year has done a really, really good job of making sure that we've explicitly established what our discipline protocols are, how it's going to be followed, making sure that it is consistently followed, and making sure that it's effectively and quickly communicated. That is something that we identified a year ago as an issue and that we've made very marked improvements on so far this year.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. What can the school board do to help the district recruit, develop, and retain quality teachers? And how does the school board plan to support teachers in the area of discipline and classroom management?
First off, our district has done pretty well. Our retention rate right now is 83%. At the latest facts I looked up. Rewarding and keeping teachers. Rewarding teachers, money. We all want more, but there's only so much in the day. Make them feel valuable, make them part of the community. Pass along a meaningful wage increase when it's financially feasible. All things I'm sure we're all trying to do already. The punishment side, the issues with behavior in school has gotten worse. I've seen it from the outside walking in. I've coached a lot of youth sports over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I noticed that trend as well. I don't have an answer for you on it. It baffles me sometimes. You'll have kids who just completely flip a white switch year over year, and it's troubling. It kind of hurts the heart to watch it happen, but we do have some very good teachers here. We hire them when they're young, they stick around, they do a very good job, and I think we're on the trail of discipline.
For recruiting teachers, I think job fairs are a great way to look for teachers. I think social media outreach is great. Referrals from current and previous teachers, especially with a great track record. If you know a teacher, it's always great to ask them if they know anybody that is looking to teach in a small community. As far as developing our teachers, I think pairing new teachers with teachers that have been in the district for a while is a great way for them to mentor them. A lot of times when teachers are new out of school, they feel lost, they feel like they have no one to talk to, they don't know where to go with questions, and that can cause a high turnover rate. As far as retaining teachers, like mentioned before, competitive wages is very important. It's important that we look over those and make sure we are staying competitive, discussing with staff what support and resources they need to try to keep them, to make sure that we're providing everything that they need. Celebrating teacher success. They work really hard, and we should be showing them that that is great. And addressing student discipline issues. There's kids in classes that need more directions, and we need to provide teachers with those resources so that it doesn't take away from our kids' learning ability, that if we need to get an additional para in there, that someone is in there to help with those kids so that the other kids are able to continue to learn.
All right, so if you haven't had the opportunity, I would say thank a teacher, because there are some days where I come home and it is everything I have. to attend to my 3 kids, and these teachers are in classrooms with 20, 30 students at a time, all day, every day. Retaining your teachers, hiring great teachers, doing all of that is key. I worked in HR again for years. I know the importance of having great people in the right roles. And one thing that I think makes us unique as a district is people want to come to Earlham. We have a really high retention rate. It's not because we pay top salaries. We're a small district. We just don't have the budget that some of your larger schools have. So a couple things that stick out. I've been on the negotiations committee for the last several years, and I've had the opportunity to really evaluate teacher pay as well as our non-certified staff pay. We've been lacking in that area, and we've worked really, really hard to increase that. So when you talk about recruiting, we've raised our base starting pay for teachers. The last 2 years, we've been able to add money in addition to what we call the aging schedule. So every teacher for every year of service, they automatically age in the payroll schedule, and we've been able to increase on top of that. You think about how that salary comes in, it comes from what we call allowable growth. And so the last few years, that allowable growth has been very minimal, 1.5% to 2.5%. Maybe I think last year we were just at 2%. We were able to offer our teachers more than their ask. So they come to us with an opening bid. We were able to increase the base as well as age the salary and offer another 5% increase. So this has been a huge focus for us. So I think our reputation and our salaries take us a long way. As far as the discipline, I think discipline starts at home. There's only so much those teachers can do. And our staff has put together some plans that the school board has reviewed as far as what does our discipline plans look like, and really supporting them in those activities and making sure that we give them the tools and resource to carry those plans through.
Next question goes to Charlie first. Got a few questions around facilities. What do you think our future building needs or facility improvements for the school system?
Again, that goes back to the growth thing that we've all talked about, but right now, if we sit where we're at, we don't have a whole lot more enrollment the next 5 years. I think number one is probably getting our 3-story building up to date, a new finish, everything new inside that so that it's up to date and functional for use for more classrooms. And along with that, I'd like to see a CTE building either go across the road or on some other property here in town, which would allow us to have more space on the school here. We could tear off that building and the old locker rooms that are not being used and possibly a wrestling room there and add on quite a few more classrooms going forward.
I think, like he said, growth is what we're looking at, and I think with the cost of building right now, I think it's best if we can try to fit in the current school that we have and try to make improvements to it and just prepare for the future and hope that building costs can go down a little bit. We need to be proactive, though. We can't wait too long, but we're eventually probably going to have to do an addition or look to build something to hold the capacity of all the open enrollments coming in.
From a facilities perspective, I think we have a lot of opportunity to grow. And long before I was on the board, we purchased that 30 acres as a district. They gave us some options. We recently purchased the ground just east of the football field. They gave us some options. I agree. I think a CTE building would be great. I think our needs assessment definitely demonstrated that. Would be good use of that ground. But again, we come down to the money and where is that going to come from and how are we going to get there? So managing that growth. But when I think about our current facilities, there are a couple things that are top of mind for me. Number one, classroom size for elementary school students. That's probably where we're seeing the most growth right now, and we are cramming those kids into classrooms. So I think we really need to think creatively of how we can make those classrooms bigger, expand, use common spaces, get them out of those smaller classrooms for parts of the day. I think there are some ways we can get creative with that and giving them some more classroom space. But also ADA compliance. Part of our building is 100 years old. And when you think about meeting, again, I'm going to go back to the whole child and every child within our district, we have some opportunity to bring different areas of our building up to date with that ADA compliance, and that's something that was pretty strongly shown during the needs assessment. Security and safety enhancements, I think we've come a long way. We've added some cameras, we've added some alert systems and things like that to help the school be more prepared in case of an emergency. But I think when it comes down to it, we have a really great plan. Boyd Jones put together a really strong foundation for us. Our next step is to take that plan and determine how, what, and when we implement. So I think we've got a really great foundation. The next steps are really to determine what we do with that.
Doing the needs assessment kind of answers that question for us. We know that we have the ADA compliance issues. We have part of our old buildings that need brought up to date. We know that we have classroom size issues that have to be addressed. CTE for about the last 3 years now, we've talked and talked and talked about it. Part of one of the appeals of Dr. Castor is that is his specialty when he was a teacher. That's an area that was a focus of his. There are some other yes, we have to have our growth, and we have to have, I have two answers to this. We need to have a plan, a contingency plan, and a contingency plan. Because if the growth goes one way, we need to be ready for it. If we suddenly have 2 developments go in, we have to have it. Corey Houghton once described it, running a school is not a speedboat, it's like running a barge. If we suddenly have a large development go in and we saw our numbers jump up, not only will we not have funds for quite a while, it takes forever to do anything in a school. It takes so long to plan and then to go out to public bidding, and every step takes so long. We have to be ready to start the steps immediately. So we have to have multiple plans in place. We also have a few other issues we need to address. We have some parking problems. Our baseball and softball fields, because they're actually owned by the city, we haven't addressed them in the ways that we should. I think those are the big, if you're ever curious, I'm sure that we have copies of the needs assessment that people could look at. It is very, very long, very detailed, and not as exciting as you might think it is.
All right, next question goes to Aaron first. And I got a number of questions around parent rights. And I'm not asked yet tonight about kind of the role of parents in public education. And so I would ask, what's your view on parents' rights when it comes to school board activities, and how would you solicit input from parents and from the broader community as a school board member?
So I think it's very important to talk with the community and see what their questions, concerns are. You always as a board member want to know what your community is thinking and what ideas they have. So I think it's important that community board, our school board members are out in the public and they're talking with the community, and then they're bringing these issues and ideas back. So presence at the school and in public for school board is very important, just so that they can be present and hear these thoughts from the community.
I think parent rights are crucial. I mean, you have a right as a parent to raise your children in the best way that fits your family values and your family needs. One of the things that has changed over the last several years is parent choice, open enrollment, law changes, the voucher program, really giving parents more opportunity to decide where they want their kids to be and how they want them to be educated. And like I said, we've seen a huge benefit in our district because of that. But when it comes to the parent rights, I think it's important that board members, like you said, are present and visible. As a parent, I attend all of my kids' events as well as lots of other events. I get a lot of feedback. Early on in the board, I said, one of the things I noticed quickly is that I didn't get a chance to watch my kids as much, because so often I was sitting talking to parents, talking to teachers, learning their opinions, understanding their thoughts, and how I could make an impact within our district. So I think at the end of the day, every parent has a choice. The state of Iowa has made that very, very clear and available to our parents. So making ourselves available as board members and hearing your feedback, understanding your needs and your wishes, and how we can bring that to the district is really important.
Of course, parents' rights are very, very important. And I think a couple of the hot topic issues that brought that question would be, for example, sex education, which is why we legally, per Iowa code, we have to provide sex education, but every parent has the ability to sign a form and have their student not participate in that. The extreme version of public education, like you say, parents have the choice to go to private schools, parents have the choice to homeschool, parents have the choice to have their kids go to public school and choose not to participate in a curriculum like that. For example, our library books, pornographic materials obviously were pulled from the library, but when we put policies in place, such as creating the committee that we created in policy to review library material, we also established a procedure where for more mature materials, parents would have to sign a permission slip for their student to have access to that. So that's another way that we're in a situation like that, parent rights are protected. As far as the second part of the question was how we solicit community involvement, soliciting is really difficult. Accessibility is pretty easy. Like Jess said, we're at everything. I think I see all three of these people all the time and a lot of the people in here. That's availing ourselves, but soliciting is harder. For example, after doing the needs assessment, we hosted 2 community forums, invited through social media, through newspapers, to try to get community members to come to that. Honestly, the attendance wasn't great. It was, I think, less than the people that we have here. So on top of that, we sent out a survey, and the survey was sent out in mass emails. It was put on social media. It was put in the newspaper, and we didn't get a great response for the surveys. The opportunity was there, but soliciting input, that is a challenge. It's something we talk about all the time. I wish we were better at it.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo what the other three kind of did there on the parent rights as well. I mean, parent rights to me are probably one of the most important things that we have. And the school understanding that and the board understanding that is a big step in the right direction as far as parents knowing that and trusting the school to do what's right for their children as well. As far as accessibility, being a voice of community, I guess kind of having that pulse of the community school district, just being involved, being around, having more than just one little circle helps out in understanding of what's going on through the travels through the communities. I think everyone up here does a pretty good job of that from what I've seen. Just, being available, being open, and being a good listener.
All right, we are at the top of the hour, so we are going to move into final comments, closing remarks. And we'll start with Jess T. Meyer. This is your chance to speak directly to the voters and make your case for why you should be on the Earlham School Board.
One of the questions we didn't get asked tonight was, what qualifications do you have to make you a viable candidate to be a school board member? And I am running on experience. I've done this for 8 years, and I would love the opportunity to continue. We've been faced with many challenges, like we've had the opportunity to share tonight, as well as some really big successes in our district. Some of the accomplishments that come to mind for me are the buildings and grounds improvements that we've made, our gymnasium, classroom improvements, hallway improvements. We've made some improvements throughout the entire district. And as Julie mentioned earlier, we've done that while lowering or keeping our tax rate down. By doing that, we've worked very closely with the city to make sure that we understand what assessments are doing, how our taxpayers are being impacted, and how we can partner to keep our community tax rate as low as possible. Leadership through the global pandemic, I already talked on that, but some great lessons learned. A leadership change. Our board went through a very challenging time as we transitioned into an interim superintendent and bringing on who I feel is probably the best superintendent we could have gotten. I love the leadership direction that we have in Dr. Castro, and I'm really proud of the process that took community involvement and professional involvement to bring him to our district. Talked about negotiations, big passion of mine to make sure that we are putting the right people in the right roles and paying them as much as we possibly can within our school budget is definitely something I've contributed to. The facilities assessment, like Julian said, we didn't get a ton of community participation or as much as we would have liked. We've done a lot of work there, and I think our next steps are really to build out that plan, and I would love to be a part of it. I've been on committees. I've taken continued education as a board member to make sure that I'm the best board member I can. But finally, I think just as important as many of you, I'm a parent in this district. I want what's best for my kiddos, and I want what's best for your kiddos. And I just hope that we can continue and that you've heard about my leadership experience and as experience as a board member to continue. Thank you.
Until Jess and I have been on the board at the same time, she stole all my answers. I too have been on the board for 8 years. From the time I got on the board to now, I have done more education learning how to be a board member than I could probably even accomplished, it's gonna sound redundant, but building the gymnasium, maintaining our tax rate then throughout the building process and lowering it since then. Going through the pandemic, which had its ups, had its downs, people liked some things we did, people didn't. One of the things that I wanna hit on is we went through that pandemic not only maintaining, but increasing our enrollment. We were one of the only districts in the state that did that. We got on the other side of the pandemic, our leadership changed. It's probably something, I was president from the start throughout to the end of that. It was an incredible amount of work, honestly. Some of it was terrifying. It's probably the thing that I'm the most proud of in the last 8 years. Dr. Kester is a fantastic leader. He's exactly what we were looking for in our district. And I would love to serve 4 more years and continue working with him. I think, was that what you were doing? That he's going.
Again, I'd just like to point a few things that I'm really passionate about. I'm a big believer in expanding our CTE programs here as well, giving our students more opportunities to go into trades and have high qualities of life when they come out of the school. With that, I would like to utilize the Apex out of Waukee more effectively if we have students that would like to use it. And again, I'd like to help shape our district for the future. And if that means new buildings, upgrades, and all the other things that go with it, I'm up for the challenge. We really need to focus on teacher retention and student success. Again, all our jobs are to make better students for everyone sitting out there so they can go be valuable members of society.
I'm excited to be running for the school board. Basically, I just really want to create transparency. I want parents to feel comfortable sending their kids to school and knowing what their kids are being taught. I don't want any parents questioning what their kids are being taught at school. I just want that to be very open. I want to implement a plan that continues to allow our school to grow so that we're successful and that we're not shutting down open enrollment. And I want higher overall test performance. I want to make sure that we're setting our kids up for the best academic success that they can have.
And that concludes our school board candidate forum for this evening. I want to remind everybody that the election is Tuesday, November 7th. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow, so make a plan to vote. You can also vote early at the Madison County Auditor's Office. And a special thanks to all of you for coming, but a very special thanks to the 4 people sitting up here in front of you. Please join me in sharing our appreciation for their running.